Hello and welcome to In Transit. I have a guest from Pakistan today, Sabeen Mahmud, who is a crusader committed to making the world a better place. She runs a non-profit social business in Karachi. Welcome to the show, Sabeen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sabeen, what do you mean by non-profit social business? Is it the same as social networking?
Not at all. I've been working in technology and design for many years, and when I wanted to set up an organization, when I got interested in development and wanting to do things that would raise people's consciousness and get them involved in poetry and art and activism and all kinds of things, I wanted it to be non-profit because my mantra is making meaning, not making money. However, in order to be effective and to make an impact, you need to have some money. And whatever I learned from the business world, which is messy, but the non-profit world is equally messy. But there are things that I learned in business that are equally applicable to an NGO or a non-profit. And so we run it like a business, but whatever money is made goes back into running the organization. And it's for social justice causes and getting people active and kind of bursting that bubble of apathy. So, and social networking is Twitter and Facebook and people connecting on the internet, which we use. It's a very powerful tool for us to reach people.
Right, but it just sounded a bit odd to me. Business and non-profit were mutually contradictory, I thought.
Muhammad Yunus,
yes, of course,
who's now in a spot of trouble.
Grameen.
With Grameen. Now there's a lot of conversation around entrepreneurship, and a lot of young people are getting interested in social businesses. So they could be for-profit or non-profit. Your motive is a social cause, and then you make some money doing it. Whatever money we make, in this case, money I find terribly boring, and I feel that it changes people in all kinds of horrible ways. When you don't have it, you spend your entire life aspiring for a better life, and people who have too much of it are really quite horrid. So it's hard to negotiate all of that, but in my head it's very clear that we need to have enough money to pay salaries on time, to keep innovating, and to pay our bills.
You have a website called Peace Niche?
So Peace Niche is the registered organization, the umbrella, and so Peace Niche has a website, and then Peace Niche has several projects. One of them is called the Second Floor, which is now affectionately
T2F.
known as T2F.
Yes.
Because we used to be on the second floor of a weird, kind of shady office building, which is where I used to be part of a technology and design business.
Right.
So, when I got this idea in 2006 that I wanted to set up this space where people could come together, space for conversation, for poetry, for music, having no money, with this peculiar attitude that I have towards money, and I don't have any of my own, the vision that I had in my head needed a lot of money, and I was paralyzed for a while, and I said, ye to ho hi nahi sakta, ab kya kare? And the adults in my life said, "Okay, start small, take a rented space." And I said, no, it's all or nothing. And then finally better sense prevailed, and the space opposite the office was empty, and so I said, they're right, chalo kar lete hain, let's at least start and see how this goes. So it was called the Second Floor. Iske alawa, there are other projects. We have something called Science Ka Adda, which is, the idea is to bring science down from the ivory towers of academia. Many of us grew up hating science in school because it was just taught so badly, like most things in school. So in a comfortable cafe environment, you get people to talk about all kinds of exciting things in science. We have an Urdu poetry preservation project where we're digitizing old mushairas and home recordings of poets. and a bunch of other things, jam sessions for musicians. So the idea, so Peace Niche is such a varied platform with arts and culture, science and technology, and advocacy and activism that really it covers all of human consciousness.
Wide spectrum. Sounds very much like the organizations we have, which are cafe come bookshop come discussion forums, like there's the Cafe Kunzum at the village,
which I hope to see
Hoskas village, which you hope to see today. Then we have Cafe Rati at the Habitat Center.
Right.
And you also have something called the Full Circle, which is a bookshop really.
That's right.
But they encourage discussion and dramatized readings, poetry readings.
In the 16th century, coffee houses were spaces for all kinds of rebellion and dialogue and conversation. And I think people are now feeling that need to connect.
Yes.
And
so these little places are mushrooming.
That's right. And I mean, it's a great way to get to know people. In Pakistan especially, there's no overt official sort of dating culture. There are no pubs and bars. Alcohol is prohibited. There are no clubs. So so one thing that was a real concern was that how do you make new friends? A lot of this was quite selfish. I wanted a space like this. I didn't specialize in anything in school or college. In fact, I spent 4 years at college trying to drop out.
You called yourself a generalist in one of the articles that I read, interviews.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to become a pilot or you want to become a doctor, yes, of course, you need to specialize. I don't want to be operated upon by a hack like me. But for regular people, I mean, I think that there's so much interesting stuff going on in the world that I was just curious about so many things. And unfortunately, people get locked into silos, and then if you're studying biology, you're not interested in art, and if you're an artist, then you have nothing to do with technology.
Right.
And I felt that there needs to be a space where we can bring all of these things together. So when people come to, let's say they come to attend a Science Ka Adda talk on, I don't know, 400 years of the telescope, they can't help but look at art for those 2 hours that they're sitting there, because it's all around them. And then you never know, someone will get curious and go up to a picture and think about it. Someone comes for a poetry reading, they might see computers and say, "Acha, ye kya hai?" So you have to do these things in insidious ways.
Yeah, well, talking about insidious ways, in Pakistan, social networking has been discouraged. Facebook was banned about a year ago. So in these circumstances, how do you operate?
So it's not really discouraged. There are a lot of businesses that are now being set up that are being marketed purely on Facebook. They don't have physical premises at all. And in the last 1 year, from cupcakes to tailoring to cooking businesses, they're all cropping up. Little handmade bottle cap magnets. It's all happening. What did happen with the Facebook ban was were those cartoons, or rather that contest, Draw Muhammad Day. And I mean,
they felt it was blasphemous because people had drawn Muhammad the Prophet.
Yeah, and I mean, I am a hardcore believer in freedom of speech, and I do not believe in censorship. But with freedom has to come some sense of responsibility.
Right.
So anyhow, what happened was that Facebook got banned, and 3 of us decided to call a press conference at the press club, which is a safe haven for all kinds of protest. But it turned very ugly that day, and the journalists turned on us, and it was a narrow escape. And the point we were trying to raise was, you have the ability, the government has the ability to ban specific pages. Ab wo ban kar dijiye. You ban all of Facebook, businesses are suffering, people communicate. I mean, you can laugh and joke and say for a few days people won't play Farmville, but it's not about that. It's about your fundamental rights being snatched from you, and no government, in my opinion, should have the ability to do that.
Right.
Not only that, they banned Wikipedia for a little while, YouTube. About several thousand websites were affected, and that's what we were trying to explain to the journalists, but they lost it by then. तो ये है कि discourage बिल्कुल नहीं होता, and I think the internet is this vast, unregulated, wonderful, democratizing space, and no matter what anyone does, people will find a way So very quickly, within hours, we were sending people links of how they could bypass the ban. And it was a bit of a ghost, like a ghost space for a few days. People found their way back. And
other nations are trying it too. China tried it.
Yeah. And it doesn't work because the people will always find a way to circumvent those bans. And governments are stupid with technology. Takes them a long time to figure out. By that time, people have come up with other
But how long will
ways.
this last? But I have a question for you. You have been protesting on issues for the last 20 years. And you know, there are like-minded people, like in theatre you have Madiha Gauhar.
Right.
And despite the ban on her plays, you know, she insists and she performs them. And
That's
she's faced many threats to her life.
Yes.
So how do you continue? Do you not face a threat to your life? Do you not feel that the next step may be terribly dangerous? So do you limit yourself? Do you control yourself? Is it a controlled protest now? How do you see it?
So in our work, if there's, let's say, the blasphemy law issue is really hot right now. We have had talks. We had Parvez Hoodboy come and give a talk on blasphemy recently. I think over there, when we arrange public events, we have to be smart, because there's absolutely no point in getting the place burned down over an issue. And I've always said that we have to live for our causes. When we're dead, we're useless. But that doesn't mean you don't take a stand. जहाँ तक सड़क पे निकल के protest करना, you know, it's really confusing, and we talk about this all the time. There are very few people who come out on the streets. And I was talking to someone yesterday, in fact, a journalist at Tehelka, who did the Pink Chaddi campaign. And you know, we talk about the fact that जब हम 20-25 लोग निकलते हैं, is it now actually counterproductive to the cause? Because really, people just happily go on with their lives and they're not bothered. And I'm often asked this question by the journalists there, कि, aren't you afraid? And I'm not. I'm not afraid. I think it's the kind of home I grew up in, the mentor that I had and his wife, so Nuzhat and Zahir Kidwai, who introduced me to street activism as founder members of Women's Action Forum and War Against Rape, etc. It was just a very natural thing to do. And my mother raised me to be an independent thinking person. So I have on occasion asked her, ki, Amma, you know, theek hai, we're going to the press club, uske baad we'll go on. And she said, well, you know, if something happens to you, I'll be devastated, but I haven't raised you now for you to have to come and ask me or get my permission.
Right.
You have to do what you have to do, and if this is important to you, then go ahead and do it. This doesn't mean that we don't look out for each other. Yesterday
absolutely.
I called her up and I said, go home. You know, I'm being a typical away from home paranoid person, but the city shut down yesterday and I didn't think there was any point in her trying to get to wherever. So we have to be prudent, and we have to see. After Salman Taseer's murder, we were out the next day. And I've never felt scared. I think more people need to overcome this fear, but then governments operate like that, right? They want to create a pervasive culture of fear so that people sit at home and don't think and don't raise a voice, because that's threatening.
Right. Sabeen, we're going in for a very brief break. Sure. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back to In Transit and a chat with Pakistani activist Sabeen Mahmud. Sabeen, tell me, how do you rate Karachi, the city where you live, in comparison to the other metropolises in Pakistan like Islamabad and Lahore? Is it intellectually much more dynamic? Do you have people who are far more active culturally?
Sometimes we tend to forget that there are other cities in Pakistan, and Karachi is it. I'm a bit of a
sounds very much like Mumbai. That's how Mumbai karza.
Because that's how I've always heard that Delhi is like Lahore, Karachi is like Mumbai. I've never been to Mumbai, so I don't really know. But I mean, it's a dirty, filthy, chaotic, bustling city, and I love it. I mean, I was raised as a global citizen, so you know, I mean, not a nationalist, not a patriot, but I'm very nationalistic about Karachi.
But is it politically and culturally far more active?
You know, the conventional wisdom is that Lahore is the seat of culture. I studied there for 4 years. I find it painfully slow.
Sounds very familiar.
I haven't been back for many years, and I'm sure it's changed, and there must have been a lot of progress. Lekin, I mean, it has good. It's a university town, so there's some great universities and colleges there. लेकिन काम करना वहाँ पे बहुत मुश्किल है. I mean, something that I could get done in Karachi in half a day will happen in 4 days over there. But it has a very vibrant theatre and art scene. Karachi is also now picking up, and it's wonderful now that people are on certain days spoiled for choice. You know, there may be maybe 4 or 5 things happening, and that has started. That change has started happening a couple of years ago. And I think starting Peace Niche and T2F 4 years ago was still, I mean, it was quite a wasteland then too. Lekin ab, you know, there's a lot more happening. The art scene is very vibrant. And young people are beginning to feel that they need to do things. So you can see. And I think that entrepreneurship really will flourish in a conflicted city. Karachi has gone through decades of violence. Abhi yesterday after Osama bin Laden's the announcement, Karachi shut down, although it ostensibly had nothing to do with Osama. It was political parties and gang wars and so on, but the city just shut down. And you know, but there's a lot of nervous energy, and people want to translate that into something positive and dynamic and actually do things for the city. So Islamabad, we joke, is 10 kilometers outside Pakistan.
Very bureaucratic.
Very bureaucrats and, you know, foreigners. And I don't go out of Karachi much after my 4 years in Lahore, where mostly I was trying to come home. So ये है कि Karachi is definitely the business hub, and it's a very exciting city.
Right. We were talking, you just mentioned Osama bin Laden and how the city shut down. You're in India at a very crucial point, moment in world history. Osama bin Laden has been killed, and you were in India when that happened. You still haven't gone back. Sabeen, what do you expect to face when you go back home?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is one of those really big things. On the other hand, you know, the media is very shrill, very strident. Everyone's got a theory, and right now the big question is, how come the Pakistani government didn't know? And all sorts of questions arise in one's mind.
That's it. You found the Indian media very, very strident.
Although I haven't seen much of it. I mean, you know, after a while it's more of the same, right? I mean, and there's just lots of talking heads and people yelling at each other and making grand pronouncements. And I think there's so much that we will never know. And so I find speculating also kind of pointless. And but it's all very sinister, and being away is also strange. And so, you know, I'm getting my news from Twitter. I'm not getting it from television. And have a couple of thousand followers, and I follow about 200, 300 people. And I get all my news from them.
But what have they been saying immediately after this incident?
Well, there's a lot of humor.
What is the feeling?
There's a lot of humor. I mean, you know, Karachi, or rather Pakistan mein, there's always something going on, right? We're always in the news. And after the initial shock and despair and horror and not again, and you know, when will we ever, is it possible that we can ever wake up in the morning and Pakistan is not in the news for something disastrous? Then people start joking. But right now the big question really is, you know, how come he was there in this so-called mansion, which really isn't a mansion?
And nobody knew,
apparently.
Knew. Yeah.
I mean, you feel sort of naive asking that question, but that's...
But do you feel the ISI and the army knew? That's what Indians feel. That's what the world feels.
I mean, how can they not have known?
Exactly.
But on the other hand, the timing of this thing is also really bizarre, and it's coming up for election time for Obama.
Yes.
So, you know, these distractions, I don't know.
And do you feel the Pakistani government is feigning, ignorance, because even though they were hand in glove, I mean, they helped the American government execute this, the American, army. Do you think they're sort of they're shying away from it because of reprisals, the fear of reprisals?
Well, relations between the Pakistani government and the US have been strained and tense for the last few weeks, and there's some quarters that say this is a gift from the ISI to America and vice versa, and I really don't understand. I'm just learning myself. I'm trying to catch up on all the news, and between our dosas and idlis, you're like, okay, maybe for a little while it's kind of a relief to not be there. So all this punditry sometimes really gets to me, and I feel ke jo hona hai wo hoga. And yeah, I mean, right now the Pakistanis are wanting to know why President Zardari has written an op-ed in the Washington Post and why he has not made a public announcement. The people of Pakistan are waiting to hear from the government and from their leaders. Ke hua kya? Or what is your stance at least? So one really doesn't know. They're not making any public statement. So everyone's waiting.
The people are equally mystified as the world is.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has their theories. I don't know if you read about this guy, Sohaib Athar, who...
Yes. So he's the one on Twitter, right?
He's the one on Twitter. And
who saw it happen and he was twittering away.
He
didn't realize what he was twittering.
No, he had no idea. And he left Lahore to get away from all the bomb blasts and all the chaos to Aptabad. And he's now the center of attention. And he has, I think in the morning when I looked, he had about 80,000 followers from 800 3 days ago. This is also the power of social media.
Absolutely. It's just proven itself.
It's all quite...
so it's interesting. You said, your first reaction was that, I'm getting humorous responses. What kind of humor did you encounter?
Well, people are saying things like, ab mujhe yaad nahi aayega on the spot, but, and I can look at my Twitter feed, but, well, people were saying, is it too soon now to write a funny piece about Osama? And someone put up a Fox News fail screenshot that said Obama bin Laden, and bin Laden, bin buried, bin something. Then the weird thing also is that they buried him at sea. I mean, this is completely
That's the other thing
bizarre.
everybody is discussing and completely mystified
Someone joked about this also, in Islam, wo ghusl karate hain na? So someone said they've taken this too seriously. He needed to be bathed, he didn't need to be thrown in the sea. So this is how people...
But is there a sanction for this in Islam? Like they're saying, we are following all the rules.
But I mean, and what sea in Afghanistan is the other thing that we want to know. He was taken off to Afghanistan, to wahan to koi...
Bilkul. But Sabeen, you've been fighting for the freedom of expression all these years in your country. Do you think it's going to be stifled now when you go back?
No, not at all. I mean, again, just like with the internet, right? When the time for an idea has come, it's powerful, right? And I think what's interesting to note is that in the last year or so, we've seen, or rather I would say, since Salman Taseer's murder, while there has been a lot of fear and a lot of old, like the usual suspects from the activism world, or no, I shouldn't say, I mean, those people are still all there, but while there's a lot of fear, there are a lot of new people also coming out and saying, okay, this is ridiculous, we need to take a stand, we need to say something. And it's important for people to understand that if you're scared to come out on the street or be seen in public, or be the public face of a campaign, there's work that you can do behind the scenes. I think that, strong branding really makes a difference because everyone's selling something.
Right.
Everyone is in the business of selling, whether it's an idea or a product. It could be soap and it could be, freedom of speech. So people need to learn that, if let's say you work in marketing, you could sit in your office and be helpful to a cause. You don't have to come out if you're fearful or your parents say, no, you can't go out. People mock people like that, but everyone has their realities and we have to work with them. You need graphic designers, you need musicians, you need poets, you need artists. Lots of people can get involved, and I think that there's no way that you can quell that. I think you just need to be smart about it.
Right.
Like when I was setting up my NGO, if I said, I'm setting up an NGO, please come and visit, who would have come? But you create a compelling proposition and people will show up. And I think even for activism and for these causes that people fight for, it needs to be compelling. You need to find ways to get people to show up.
Well, thanks so much, Sabeen, for joining us in the studio today.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me too to chat with you. And thank you for joining us in this episode of In Transit. We will return next week same time with yet another achiever transiting through the capital. You can contact us at intransit.lstv@gmail.com. Goodbye.